So after Rakugo Shinju came down from anime heaven last year and had its proverbial balls massaged by every self-respecting anime fan under the sun, the boys over at Zexys said, hey, why don't we take a break from making shitty adaptations of IPs I've never heard of, get the character designer from Rakugo in here, get the rights to this novel that's already had a feature film made out of it, and then after all that was done, some executive producer finally asked, sorry, what is this story about exactly? It's about making dictionaries. So what you're saying, and be honest with me, is that there are no explosions, no beach episodes, and no opportunity for the merchandising of hilariously overpriced figurines depicting scantily clad women? Yep, that's right. Is there a best girl? There she is.
Anime's my shit, dude.
Funeo Amu gets compared a lot to Rakugo Shinju, and for good reason. They're both character-driven adult dramas that center themselves around the professional and personal lives of people who are actually not in high school. I'll say right now that if you enjoyed Rakugo, then you'll most likely enjoy Funeo Amu as well. I will also say that I agree with the consensus opinion that Rakugo is a better show than Fune. But I'm gonna stop mentioning Rakugo. I'm just gonna take Funeo Amu by itself and talk about it for a bit. If you went over the Annie chart back in fall 2016 and your eyes glazed over from seeing the words dictionary and retirement in the same blurb, I don't think anyone would blame you. I mean, come on, dictionaries? That shit's been obsolete since before I was born. Surely whatever they come up with can't make dictionaries interesting, right? Well, let me tell you something, you unbelieving miscreant. This show is one of the best things to come out of 2016, and if you don't believe me now, I hope you believe me by the end of the video. Our lead is this tall dude named Majime Mitsuya. He can't talk to people and spends a lot of time holed up in his room. Sound familiar?
Weeaboo Jones!
He also really likes books and words. Due to a chance run-in with our most prominent supporting character, Nishioka, he gets transferred into the dictionary department of Genbu Publishing, and that's where the story begins. Not much else to say in terms of premise. They make a dictionary. So the first thing on everyone's mind, is the main character autistic? How do you make a show about making a dictionary interesting? Well, the answer is just what you'd expect. The show isn't really about dictionaries. I mean, it is, but it isn't. The story could have taken a very different route by focusing more on all things dictionaries, sort of like how Math Girls is literally all about math, or how Black Clover is all about... And while a fair amount of dictionary technicalities show themselves over the course of the story, nothing of that nature is thrown in just for the sake of education. Save for the commercial bumpers, wherein cute anthropomorphic dictionaries do actually educate you on dictionaries, which I personally think is a nice touch that also has some relevance to the story at the very end. The antagonists in the show are not characters, they're deadlines, restrictions, and most importantly, the struggles of our main characters. Pretty much everyone here is portrayed as a well-meaning, down-to-earth person, and that makes the show really comfy, which may or may not be a plus for you. Not having a willful agent as the source of conflict can make the show seem like it's floating lazily, just going through the motions. This, of course, leads to boredom, and in a show ostensibly about dictionaries, this is a slippery slope to travel on, a slope that, again, may be steeper for you than it was for me, depending on your disposition. You also won't find any crazy plot curveballs. What kept me interested, and what I believe Fune does well, is to continuously place hurdles in front of the characters in a believable way. There's always some sort of natural conflict in the process of being resolved. Sometimes this involves their work, other times it's related to Majime and his budding romance with Kaguya, and most of the time it's both. This anime is made for a very different crowd than those who enjoy other workplace anime like Shirobako, which is great, or New Game, which is pretty forgettable. There's no moe here unless you count those cute little dictionaries. This is an adult drama, and the workplace acts as a vehicle for the growth of our characters, both in the work they undertake and the interactions they have with their coworkers. Character interaction is the other thing Fune does really well, and it better do that well because unlike a lot of other anime, it doesn't have the liberty to rely on spectacle to keep everyone interested. That's not to say, however, that you could have grafted these characters directly into another premise. One of my favorite scenes is when Majime meditates on how to define the word right, as in the direction. It's not only a great demonstration of Majime's character, it's presented organically. It's good stuff. This scene and others like it help ground the characters within the story rather than having a disconnect between the more compelling character drama portion and the more boring making a dictionary portion. Fune Oamu tends to get quite romantic in its portrayal of dictionaries. Most of the characters are super into dictionaries, especially this old dude here who talks at length about how awesome dictionaries are in quite a sensational tone. The other way Fune dramatizes dictionaries is through its visuals. The most important motif is that of the sea of words and how the dictionary they are writing will allow this sea to be crossed. The very first scene is of Majime standing on the edge of the ocean while kanji float around his feet, foreshadowing how this sea will threaten to engulf him, which it evolves to do over the course of the story. So we have scenes where Majime is being sucked into this sea, or words are floating off pages, to represent how enamored he becomes in his work. The music in the show can unfortunately be pretty inconsistent. You have scenes like this,
かぐやさんもお休みですか?
where the backing track sounds like it was ripped directly from a low-rate high school slice of life, and then not 2 minutes later you get this,
止まって見えますが。
where the tone is appropriate, even, and yeah, it's a pretty great scene, and it's great in no small part because of the music. In parts where the score detracts, it usually feels like they were going for a lighthearted tone, but forgot to pull back a bit, and suddenly the scene in question becomes lighthearted in an overly juvenile sort of way. Broadly speaking though, Fune hits the notes that matter with its soundtrack. Get it? At a basic level, this story is one of a passing of the torch to the younger generation, and especially in Nishioka you can see how he grows to love these annoying, boring books. What makes this interesting, of course, isn't simply the fact that he constantly complains about how boring his job is in the first quarter of the show and then stops doing that, but rather that he develops a strong relationship with Majime and uses that as a springboard to confront his own problems in the company and in his personal life. Fune has a great knack for showing character growth through small, subtle changes and actions. For example, at one point Nishioka asks his girlfriend out for dinner, something he wouldn't have done previously. Nishioka's arc may very well be the best executed part of the show. On the other hand, I do have to admit that I found the romantic subplot between Majime and Kaguya to be a bit lacking. The character interaction between the two is well done. Just look at the Ferris wheel scene I mentioned earlier. The main problem is that Kaguya lacks strong characterization. Her main thing is that she and Majime are compatible because they're both passionate about their respective occupations. Her other main thing is that she's incredibly quiet and doesn't talk that much. However, Kaguya never speaks for herself in any deeply meaningful way, and because of that, she ends up feeling more like an object than a person. This also happens in The Wind Rises by Studio Ghibli. Don't get me wrong, I love that movie to death, but Satomi really has no personality of her own and simply exists to be the love interest, the rock, just like Kaguya. At the end of the day, the direction the show takes is one of a heavy focus on Majime, but I still think it's relevant and important that Majime has this subplot, at the very least as an indication of his maturation. Oh yeah, I guess I should say something about the ending too. This show's ending is super satisfying. It wraps up all the loose ends and left me saying, yeah, that's really nice. Where can I buy this dictionary? Alright, so hopefully this gave you some sort of idea as to whether or not you'll like this show. If it isn't already obvious, I did quite a bit. So if you're looking for a quiet, comfy, and very satisfying experience, and you're a big adult with good taste that hates cute girls, this might be the show for you.